So me and one of my friends in the middle of July decided that we wanted to go out and spend the summer somewhere else, not in our home country. And we decided to choose Korea to spend 5 days. And it was some of the best 5 days ever, you know. That was the first time I genuinely felt like it wasn't so lonely traveling, and we had our families and friends all together just having fun experiencing the culture and cuisine that Korea had to offer. But during this time, me and my friend also had, lonely times, right? The times that we were quiet. And so we decided to talk to each other about our lives, right? What has happened in the past 9 years, or what has happened that caused you to be sad, or what can you improve on in your lifestyle? And we ended up getting to the topic of falling behind, right? And that really touched me because falling behind was always something that I suffered from because it always felt like whatever I was doing wasn't enough. And I realized that, everyone suffers from it, right? Whether it's from school, personal goals, or even relationships, the feeling of falling behind is incredibly overwhelming. And we decided to touch on a lot more deeper topics within the topic of falling behind. And we got to the meaning of what does it actually mean to fall behind, right? What is the feeling of it? Well, for us, it was something like missing deadlines at work, or struggling to keep assignments in school, or realizing that everyone else seems to be making progress while you feel stuck. That's what we felt like. But we realized that everyone feels falling behind in a different way. Falling behind could be, missing a competition. It could be falling behind means you're not making enough friends, or it could also be that you're not earning enough money for adults out there, right? And this effect can be extremely heavy, right? We realize that because of falling behind, you often get stressed, right? Your body responds with that fight or flight mode and makes it even harder for you to think things. And then there comes self-doubt, which is probably the biggest enemy that anyone has in themselves. Your biggest enemy isn't you, but it's actually your body. Because self-doubt, you start to question your abilities, right? You start to question if you even are doing good. Like, even if you achieve something great, you don't feel like you achieved something great. You feel like you've achieved something really, really mediocre, and someone else has already beaten you to the next level. And if this builds up, right, it could slip into what we call a procrastination stage, right? Where you don't want to do anything because whenever you put effort into something, you don't feel like that effort has actually reciprocated you back. But for me, I realized the truth, right? Falling behind doesn't actually mean you're a failure. It just means you're human. Life isn't a straight race where everyone moves at the same pace. Instead, some people have a straighter line than others. Somebody could have a hard 90-degree corner and have to work their way to get back to that 180-degree line, right? Some people might just have a straight line their entire life. Some people might have a curve in their road. So it really depends on, where do you start and how you look at yourself. Now, we also got to the topic of falling behind and how that really affects growth, right? Growing as a human being is hard. And especially when you have things like self-improvement, which we can all agree that self-improvement isn't really a real thing. It's just something that you wish you had. It's not a real thing to self-improve, right? It's about building yourself. And there's a lot of things that can happen when you're falling behind. And one of the biggest things I experienced in school was the motivational drops. Motivation is a very short-term fuel. It's not like discipline. Discipline is a longer fuel that can last out for a longer time. Motivation really depends on how you feel that day, right? You could feel really happy on that day, and so you have incredible motivation to achieve all the tasks. But sometimes you might feel really bad that day, and your motivational drops. That's why falling behind really sucks, because your motivation is very like a fluctuating stock market change. You sometimes go up a ton, and then you crash a lot of times. And so it feels like you'll never catch up. It's tempting to give up, sometimes completely. Now, parents don't help with falling behind as well, because maybe one day you decide to talk to your parents about the idea that, hey, I'm not doing too well in school, I'm falling behind. Well, guess what? Most of you guys probably heard your parents compare you to someone else, right? The comparison starts to increase. And everyone, even like every channel out there, has said something about comparison, right? And there's always a quote that always goes, you start measuring your chapter 3 to someone's chapter 20. You're not at chapter 20. They're on chapter 30, but you're not. So it shouldn't make any sense that you should be comparing yourself when you just started versus somebody who's already achieved in life. And they've suffered already through whatever they had to suffer through. So it's up to you now to do the same. Lastly, opportunities can slip so easily out of your hands, right? In practical terms, falling behind at work or school can really close doors temporarily, right? Maybe a club opened up, but you feel like, you don't want to join because someone else is already better than you in that club, and so you don't really join it just because you don't want your spotlight to be taken, right? I always had this feeling that whenever I joined a new club, right, I had to take the spotlight, which is very selfish of me, and it's something that you should never do. Everyone is different, and somebody will outshine you always, but it is not a goal for you to just go to a club or go to a meeting and say, I'm the best person there, you guys should all listen to me. That's not the point, because the point is really you having fun and actually learning something from the club. It's a learning experience. It's not something like a hierarchy where you have to rank up and be the best of the best. It's good to be the best of the best and working towards that, but you should aim your goal to be the best of the best, right? Sometimes that can be very, very inducing. My friend then went on to the topic of how can we improve, right? And we ultimately got to 3 points. The first point was to acknowledge it without shame, right? You have to acknowledge that you're falling behind. And yes, you have to say it to yourself, yes, I have fallen behind. It sounds simple, but admitting it removes, the guilt blame. You can't fix what you refuse to face, right? 2 is to break it down, right? Big problems feel impossible. Instead of saying, I need to catch up on 3 months of work, try to say, today I'll complete 1 task, tomorrow another, and the small wins adds up. That's something that everyone needs to know is your wins are celebrated through the small things that you do. It's not some big thing like getting into the top 1 of your country's, Olympics, or maybe being the best in your class, right? It's about the small wins that you have in life that truly add up. And 3rd is to prioritize. I cannot stress enough how much you need to prioritize your life. Not everything you have in your life is equal. Not everything deserves the same amount of attention. Identify the areas and tasks that you need to work more than others, right? Maybe it's about exercising. Maybe you haven't exercised at all. Maybe that would be your top priority rather than already studying. Let's say you were a good studier but not a good, physicist or like a good physicist, right? You haven't studied your physics yet. Focus on that area where you're weak in. It might seem daunting at first, but really stepping to the parts where you're really insecure about is how you're gonna really achieve those small goals. And so here's the key takeaway from this video. Falling behind isn't a permanent state. It's just one of your chapters, and the next chapters can change. What matters is not how far back you actually are. It's that you're willing to take the next steps forward. Remember, progress isn't always fast because it's still progress. And yeah, thanks for listening. That's the only thing that I have on today. And if you guys haven't seen my other deep talks, I would highly recommend them. And that's kind of it I have for this video. Thank you. I'll see you guys in the next one.